The legend of Peter Brock's unfulfilled racing masterpiece. Somewhere, tucked away beneath a dust cover in a remote garage in El Segundo, California, is likely one of history's greatest forgotten racing cars. Designed by the man who created the Daytona Cobra and the Corvette Stingray Racer, the Samurai is a nexus of American can-do and Japanese engineering, one that ensured an unlikely legacy of speed, endeavor, achievement, betrayal and revenge. This is the story of a lost samurai and the rise of a Japanese-American racing legend. From today's vantage point, it's hard to remember that the once-fledgling Japanese auto industry was essentially a disaster. Early imports were mostly copies of British and French designs, underpowered and flimsy. The public was unmoved. Hino, which persists today as a Toyota subsidiary manufacturing commercial trucks and buses, entered the passenger car market in 1953 with license-built Renaults. By the 1960s, it offered a small displacement, rear-engined sedan called the Contessa and a front-engine pickup truck called the Brisca with hopes of entering the U.S. market. The Contessa 900 was not a particularly sprightly car. Based roughly on the Renault Dauphine, it had swing axles and all of 35 horsepower from a heavy, water-cooled 898cc rear-mounted four-cylinder. Making one into a racing machine would be sewing the proverbial silk purse out of a sow's ear. Yet racing was part of Hino's plan. Bob Dunham, an American expat working in the Japanese film industry, managed to convince Hino's management that racing success would lead to respect and thus a toehold in the U.S. market. Another American entrepreneur, Don Nichols, helped Dunham make the connection with Peter Brock, then working for Carroll Shelby. Is your Ferrari dealer good enough to be Ferrari Classic? 2 years ago, Ferrari set out to find, among its worldwide authorized dealers, those that were good enough not only at working on old cars. And thus it was that, Dunham, the star of Dogaro, the Space Monster, became Brock's first customer with his nascent Brock Racing Enterprises, better known now to classic Datsun fans as BRE. Dunham campaigned his BRE-developed Contessa in a season of sedan racing sanctioned by the California Sports Car Club. The next season, Dunham returned to Japan and Brock took over driving the bored-out Hino. It was never quick enough to consistently beat the Minis and Cortinas, but it still occasionally made the podium. Hino was impressed enough to invite Brock to Japan to test its new Contessa Coupe. This second-generation car was a much more convincing machine, from prolific designer Giovanni Michelotti. Its 5-bearing, 1,300cc, twin-carbureted four-cylinder produced as much as 64 horsepower in factory trim, with some engine development assistance from Alpine. Brock produced 2 BRE-prepped Contessas, and in 1966, they saw action in the Mission Bell 100. A support race for the International Riverside Grand Prix, the Mission Bell had more than 100,000 spectators on hand, all of whom collectively gasped as Brock and Dunham went 1-2 in a pair of heretofore completely unknown machines. What in the hell is a Hino? The win made Brock a hero in Japan, as did painting Team Samurai the Japanese national flag on the Contessa's front fenders. Hino's chief financial officer, a man named Miyako, had spent several years in England and understood that racing success would give the company a foundation in the U.S. market. He secured funding for Brock to race Contessas in the U.S., plus a little extra for a secret project, a GT car designed to compete at Le Mans. The resulting BRE Samurai is one of the most stunning racing machines ever made. Built on a Legrand Mk4 chassis, its bodywork received the full extent of Brock's innovative ideas about aerodynamics. Essentially, it was an updated, mid-engined, small-scale version of the same aerodynamic principles Brock had used on his World Championship-winning Daytona Cobra Coupe. The Samurai's remarkable shape included a driver-adjustable rear wing. At its heart was a stroked, Contessa-sourced 1.8-liter pushrod 4, which now made some 120 horsepower. Aluminum bodywork came from California's Troutman Barnes, known for its work on the mid-engined Mustang I prototype. Brad Keselowski turned back the clock on Friday at Michigan International Speedway. Keselowski stepped out of his Penske Racing Ford to take a spin in a replica of Henry Ford's 1901 Sweepstakes, The '67 Japanese Grand Prix was set to be Hino's shining moment. Actor Toshiro Mifune, reprising his role of team manager in 1966's classic race film Grand Prix, was made Team Samurai's honorary captain. The car looked set to dominate Group A. However, it was not to be. Despite massive public interest, Hino's Samurai had many enemies. Toyota had significant control at Fuji Speedway, and the company wanted Hino's truck-building capacity. Success would drive Hino stock prices up, so the scrutineers, Toyota employees, disqualified the car from racing. Hino is based in northern Japan, where they have an amazing samurai culture. It's all about honor, says Brock. If they say they're going to do something, you can count on it. But in Japan's southern Kansai district, business is a completely different culture. They can be absolutely rapacious. Seeking to gain strength by acquiring and incorporating other companies, Toyota had earlier established a linking agreement with Hino in October 1966. Despite its surprising success in racing and potential in the American market, the Contessa had not been financially successful at home. Hino was vulnerable. When Hino's president suddenly died shortly after the Samurai's Grand Prix disqualification, Toyota pounced. Hino became an ikuto, or supplier, to Toyota. Small car production quickly dwindled. While production of buses and trucks ramped up, the Contessa was phased out, and Hino's brisker pickup became the first Toyota Hilux. Any racing aspirations were ended. For Brock, it was a turn of the page. Toyota offered BRE a contract to race its new 2000 GT in SCCA competition, and design a prototype GT endurance racer called the JP6, based on the 2000 GT's twin-cam engine. The 2000 GT was pretty much the most bitchin' car to ever come out of Japan, Brock says. With a signed contract in hand for both those programs, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. But Carroll Shelby, fresh off winning Le Mans for Ford, had recently bought a Toyota franchise. Shelby was at the peak of his career. At the 11th hour, Brock says, Shelby convinced Toyota management that he could defeat both Triumph and Porsche to win the SCCA's C-Production National Championship. Toyota didn't even give Brock the courtesy of a call, instead shipping its 2000 GTS directly to Shelby's shop. Looking for revenge, Brock went to Datsun, but they turned him down. They thought their car was too slow, he says. The Fairlady Roadster was small and antiquated next to the stunning curves of the Yamaha-built Toyota 2000 GT, but the real problem was a lack of know-how. The current Datsun privateer racers were losing, and blaming the car. Mid-level management believed their excuses. Brock knew he could make the little Datsun run hard. The Hino connection provided a solution. Brock called up his old co-conspirator, Miyako, and explained his frustration. Miyako said he'd have lunch with an old university friend, Nissan's chairman. A week later, the call came back from Miyako. Nissan Japan would supply the cars and funding for the 1969 season. Brock showed up with the first race-prepped BRE 2000 Roadster in the back of his Hino transporter at the start of the 1969 season. His cars had been prepared in secret, with money flowing straight from the Japanese office. Datsun's North American management was shocked. Despite running in different classes, the little Datsuns took the fight straight to Shelby's 2000 GTS. When the Shelby team went to Arkansas to cherry-pick some out-of-region points, BRE drove across the country to exact its revenge. The Group D Datsuns might have to let a Group C Triumph or Porsche past, but they'd keep the Toyotas off the podium. Toyota threw $500,000 at its project, but the BRE Datsuns won their regional championship while the 2000 GTS never qualified for the national shootout. Toyota took its cars and slunk home. BRE and Datsun, on the other hand, had just started. Yutaka Katayama, the Nissan USA president who had not been previously told of Brock's requests, was delighted to see Datsuns on the podium, and a partnership was formed. Soon, BRE liveried 510s and 240s were racking up SCCA and Trans Am trophies. The BRE Samurai ended up in the hands of Ron Bianchi, an amateur racer who assembled a development team to make the Samurai competitive. The car claimed 2 SCCA class championships and nearly 40 podium finishes. Years later, the Samurai passed back into Brock's hands. Having no sponsorship to take it racing, he sold it to a Japanese Hino collector named Satoshi Izawa. The car was being restored in California by master fabricator Joe Cavagliari when Izawa mysteriously pulled the plug. Izawa stashed the car somewhere in El Segundo, and there, maybe, it still lurks. Izawa never responded to our interview requests. However, that first Hino truck and the BRE 2000 Roadster it carried will soon be reunited. The latter was already part of Adam Carolla's collection of racing Nissans and Datsuns, and he recently acquired Brock's old transporter, currently under restoration at Bodie Stroud Industries in Sun Valley, California. When the Hino hoists that first BRE racer on its back, it will be a physical representation of how the BRE legend was born. If not for BRE, Nissan might never have had racing success. But if not for the honor of Hino, we might never have had BRE, the American Samurai. By Brendan McLear. Car Life, Car News, Classic Cars, Racing, People, Other News, People, Tuners, Trucks, DIY, Other Motorsports.